Guys, welcome to my channel Hammonds Hobbies. My name's Glenn and today I'm joined by the ausf1Collector, also known as Matt. Say hi, Matt.
G'day guys, how you going?
Today we're going to do like a podcast episode. We're just going to chat about all things F1. Obviously it's the last race of the year, so we can pretty much review the whole year, I suppose. And then also talk about F1 cards. Obviously, that's what most of you are watching this for. Obviously, we've got some new releases coming out. We've had some releases this year. And then we'll talk about the markets and stuff. Yeah, Matt, what do you think of this year's F1 as a sport so far?
Oh, look, I think it's probably been a little bit disappointing after the excitement that we had in 2021. I mean, obviously, I'm happy. There's no secret that I like Max. I'm happy he's won the championship, but it would have been nice to have a closer battle with Leclerc, and I think it would be good for Formula One if Ferrari are competitive and fighting, but yeah, unfortunately it didn't work out that way. But yeah, there's been some good moments. Like, it was really nice to see Russell win his first race last week. That was really cool. But yeah, overall, as much as it's nice, well, I guess it's. I'm enjoying Max winning. It'd be better if it was more competition, I guess, like last year. What about you? What do you think?
I actually think the start of the year was really good. If it was this year, I believe, when it was literally like Charles Leclerc was qualifying first, wasn't he? Like quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then Max was obviously, and was it this year they had that race where they were both sort of like they didn't want to cross the DRS line first. So they were both heavily braking before the line. And then they were sort of like later on in the lap trying to overdo each other. That was intense. And I'm not a huge Charles Leclerc fan, but I just thought that was awesome. It was like watching Max versus Lewis, sort of like continuation from last year. And then that happened quite a few times in the year, at the start of the year. But then Ferrari just dropped off, didn't they? They just sort of I don't know, like they kept making mistakes.
Yeah.
And Charles Leclerc was still qualifying. If you look at how many times Ferrari have qualified first, I think they've out-qualified Red Bull, haven't they? Or is that wrong now? But I remember they qualified quite a lot higher above Red Bull. And
Max has only got, that was his 7th pole last night. So I'm surprised. To be honest with you, I would have thought Max had more poles than that. So maybe. But yeah, just too many errors and engine failures, and I think the confidence just got knocked out of them. But yeah, they were really fast at the start of the season, Ferrari. So it's just a shame it didn't continue on.
Yeah, and obviously I'm a British fan, so like I would say I enjoy watching Formula One. I'm not one of the all these new people that have joined F1, I think a lot of them, once, say, Lewis retires, they'll probably drop off because obviously he's captured quite a large US market now, and also other countries. But so when he retires, a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't know who else to follow or support. I actually enjoy watching the races, whoever's winning or losing. So yeah, I've enjoyed this year, and obviously Max dominating. I think is a good thing for the sport, especially in Europe. Like, you look at a lot of them European races, and Max's fans are nuts. Like, they're everywhere. But yeah, we do want to see what deep down what we all want to see is Max versus Lewis, week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crashes, incidents, slagging each other off.
Yeah.
Team bosses, innit? That's really, innit? I know it sounds horrible, but
no, it is. Yeah,
because they're saying like, oh, it's really toxic on social media.
With the incident into the first and second corner.
And then when they came together, what was it? Was that Brazil, wasn't it? When they came together in Brazil, just gone, I was like, oh, like it all just came back really quick. Oh, he turned into him, and he and I was watching the analysis after and the slow mo, and I was like, and you and me disagree. We were talking before we went live that you feel that Lewis should have got a 5-second penalty as opposed to Max.
Yeah, well, I think Max cleanly got him around the outside, and he was quite close to him, next to him, and Lewis didn't give him a whip, so there was not a car width there for him to get through. But, I mean, look, I don't know, you were saying you didn't remember this, but Lewis dove down the inside of Ocon in Monaco, and he was much further back, and they made contact, and Ocon got the penalty bang on the outside for not leaving a full car length space. So there's no consistency from the FIA. So off that ruling, then Lewis should have got the penalty, and Martin Brundle, suggested he thought, Max was hard done by as well. So Look, I know I'm obviously a Max fan over a Lewis fan, but I genuinely think that, Max deserved a little bit more space into that corner. But Max doesn't help himself with his comments afterwards saying, it only cost me 5 seconds and it cost Lewis a chance of a race win.
No.
Read into that
I tell you, the thing that actually solidified in my mind that this is what I think's happening now, yeah? I was watching, I don't know if do you have Sky Sports? Do you get the same Sky Sports?
Yeah, we get the full Sky. Yeah, we get the full Sky
one
coverage in Australia.
Okay, all right. So, did you watch after where Karun Chandok was doing the Sky Pad and he was doing the slow motion? He was showing you that even though Max and Lewis into one turn were side by side, by the time they'd got to next one, Lewis was quite far ahead. Yeah, and Max lunged into him. Yeah, and he was saying, based on that angle and that distance there, then yeah, Max does deserve that penalty after they've reviewed it. But then Max came out and said, I knew Lewis weren't going to give me much space, so I just sent it up the inside anyway. And he laughed. He went, ha, 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 like you said. Then he said, it only cost me 5 seconds, but it cost him the wave. Now, why would he have done exactly the same move to anyone else? He's obviously gone into that movement, thinking, I want to cost Lewis his race. And I think that's because, this is my opinion, I think Max is already thinking, I want to outdo Lewis Hamilton's records, I want to beat his most wins, most qualifyings, I think he's thinking in that sort of mindset already. Because he said in a few interviews, he said in a few interviews before, I don't look at the records and I don't care about records. But then when they were live in the race, they said, he goes, only 2 more races to win, implying that, if we win 2 more races, we beat that record of most wins in a year. And they said, yeah. And then he'd done it and he was like, so have we got the record? So he obviously does care about these records. And I think he thinks for every time Lewis wins a race, that's an extra 2 that I've got to win. Because, yes, he has to win that one to equal Lewis, then he has to win another one to beat him. So in his mind, he's already thinking, right, Lewis has only got a year or so left in him. If he wins 20 races, I've got to win another 21 races later on in my career. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's thinking in that sort of mindset already. Like, he just does, out of everyone, he just doesn't want Lewis to perform well. That's what I think.
It's an interesting take. I think you're reading a lot into it.
And they asked Lewis, I don't know if you've seen the the drivers' conference for this weekend. Someone said to Lewis, do you think that Max acts differently to overtaking you? Because he thinks, obviously, because you're considered the greatest driver of all time, he wants to put a dent in that and sort of over. And Lewis said, yeah, I do think he thinks like that. And I was thinking, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So if we're all thinking it, do you know what I mean? Like, I think there must be a little bit of truth in it.
Look, I think Max has a view with Lewis.
Because if that was Charles Leclerc, if that was Charles Leclerc, he would have.
When Max races Lewis, obviously there's a lot of rivalry there. But if he's going to go for a move up the inside, particularly in the instance in Brazil, he's like, I got nothing to lose. So if Lewis doesn't give me the space or give me a car's width and we collect, it's more costly to him than me. So he's got more to lose by not giving me racing room. So I think that's more of the way I perceive it. But I think it's just with his sort of, I guess, his personality and being, I guess his persona, he's just very blunt. And look, I don't know that it's as extensive as we're going as in depth as.
I mean, at the beginning of the year,
I don't know. We don't know what goes on.
At the beginning of the year, Martin Brundle said, there is a clear difference between Max racing Charles Leclerc to Max racing Lewis. There is a difference because he's not taking as much risks. And you could say, but that's because he's fighting for a championship at that point. But he didn't know at the very first race of the year, I'm going to be fighting for the title this year. They didn't know how well.
But I also think Max and Leclerc gave each other a lot more respect. Like in that race, that was Saudi Arabia that you were talking about earlier, about the DRS zone and whatnot. Whereas I think, Lewis and Max, they don't give each other the space, but I think it's a two-way street.
Yes.
It's not just Max.
Yeah,
I think Lewis races differently against Max as well. I think it's a two-way street.
That is right,
they don't like each other, and they don't give each other the room. If anyone else dove up the inside in that instance, like if that was Max and Leclerc, more space would have been given, or Lewis and Leclerc. It doesn't matter. I just think they're just not going to give each other the space. And I think there's that persona now with Max that he crashes and he's, he's too aggressive, that it always, he comes off looking worse to the race stewards. And it was like Italy last year. I think at best that was a racing incident, if not actually Lewis's fault, because Lewis was coming out of the pits and he gave Max the space into one, but took it off him into two. You can't give someone space into the first set of the chicane and then take it off them. And Will Buxton had the exact same view that I had as well. He did a big Twitter article on it as well. And Will Buxton's very well respected. And he said that set a dangerous precedence on racing. If you can give someone the room into the first set of a chicane and then take it off them going into the second, and Max copped the penalty, not Lewis, in Italy. So again, Max got away with a free kick in Brazil last year, 100%. He ran Lewis off the road and he should have been penalised for that. But I think, Max gets judged a little bit more harshly than other drivers maybe. And look, he has crashed a lot, and look, Senna crashed a lot too. It's Jackie Stewart used to call out on Senna out for crashing too much. So I think Max has that Senna Schumacher mentality. Lewis is more of a cleaner racer. He doesn't have that win at all cost instinct, which Schumacher 100% had. I think Max 100% has it, and I think Senna had it. I'm not saying that he's as good as Senna or Schumacher, Max, and Lewis isn't, but I think Max goes down that pathway of mentality, whereas Lewis goes, he's a bit more of a cleaner racer, whereas, he won't go for every gap, or, I think it's a little bit of a different style there. And we touched on it earlier, I think, when we were chatting, before the video. Lewis did, probably crash or be a bit more aggressive in the McLaren days, but I still don't think he was as aggressive of what Senna, Max, or Michael Schumacher were at points of their career.
I'll probably agree with you there, actually. And I don't know, like I suppose you have to, they've got different driving styles, and which one's the right or wrong. There isn't a right or wrong answer, because Lewis has done really well, Schumacher's done really well, Senna's done really well, Max has done really well.
I like Max, but Lewis is an amazing driver. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the accolades he gets, because he does. It's just, I'm looking at those incidents with how I've watched Formula One since the late 90s, and what other decisions have been made over the years, and I just feel that Max, just no matter what, they look for a reason to make Max at fault. And that Ocon and Lewis incident in Monaco, kind of, it's the opposite guy got the penalty, so there's no consistency there for me, which is a little bit shit, because I think now for Max, can he go for a move with Lewis, because he knows if they touch, he's probably going to come off second best regardless.
It'd be interesting. I think next year we're going to see a lot more Lewis and Max, because the Mercedes...
Oh, yeah. Mercedes will be better, 100%. And we want that too.
The Mercedes seems like it's very good in certain tracks and not others at the minute. So we're going to see certain races where Mercedes and Red Bull are going to come together, and then you've got Ferrari are there or thereabouts as well. So I think next year we'll probably get the season we thought we were going to get this year, because obviously the new regulations came in this year and everyone thought, we're going to have really close racing. But what we have is you had like Ferrari and Red Bull quite far ahead, Mercedes in no man's land, and then the rest of the pack. Now we've got Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull all quite fairly close, and then the rest of the pack. So hopefully they can bunch that up even more. I was really happy when Kevin Magnussen got that pole the other day. Like, someone messaged me and said, I bet you're disappointed because you're a Lewis fan. And I said, no, I'm a fan of the sport. I was really happy. I was watching it with a big smile on my face. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's, has. And he got it fair and square as well. I know he was lucky in the way that the rain fell and the timing and everything like that, but they all went out when the rain started to come down, and they all put in their best lap at that point in time, and he got pole. So he got it fair and square. I was really happy.
No, that was a nice story for the sport, I think.
And then he crashed out in the race.
Well, but it wasn't his own fault.
No, it wasn't.
My countryman Ricardo did dirty on him and took him out, unfortunately. And Ricardo's got a penalty, 3 grid spot penalty this race because of it, which is a little bit disappointing in his last race, or what could be his last race. But yeah, no, it was good for K-Mag, and just a bit sad to see him go out so early in the actual race afterwards.
You know, something I thought about when F1, the top started doing F1 collectible cards, I was saying, like, oh, how's this going to work with, like, you know, typically you have drivers in teams for many, many years. And obviously you've got Lando Norris has got a huge contract with McLaren. Max has signed a huge contract with Red Bull. Lewis is obviously going to stay at Mercedes for a few more years, and probably George Russell. And then Leclerc signed a long contract with Ferrari, I believe, or plans to. So I was thinking, oh, you're going to see the same teams, the same drivers in the same sets year in, year out. Then since I thought that, we have had like 3 or 4 drivers change every year. So like we had that year, 2020, we had George, Lando, and who was the other? Alex Albon were the rookies for 2020. Then the next year you had Mick, Nikita Mazepin, and Yuki Tsunoda. And now this year, going into next year, Nikita Mazepin's not with us anymore. Mick Schumacher's not going to be with us anymore. Daniel Ricciardo's not going to be there. Kimi Räikkönen retired last year. Vettel's going this year. Nico Hulkenberg's come back. Like, there's actually loads that has changed. I don't know if that's going to be like that every year, but it seems like this is a lot more changes than I'm used to in F1.
I think 2023 has definitely got a bit of a grid shake-up, but I think 21 to 22, there wasn't much happening, because I think realistically the only new driver, you've got Zhao on the grid this year, and obviously Magnussen came in for Mazepin. So the 22 products to 21, there's not much change there. I think the big change is you've got George Russell's first Mercedes like portrait cards effectively, and Zhao rookie cards, but they're probably the 2 main ones I'm thinking from 2022. So I think this year's product mightn't be so exciting, but I think 2023's product has a lot of potential, particularly with De Vries and Piastri with their Formula One rookie cards.
Yeah, you've got a couple of new guys coming up now as well. And Nico Hulkenberg, it'll be the first time he'll be in a card set. Like hobby-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, true. Yeah, well, I mean, he's got a Turbo Attack.
Turbo Attacks is in, yeah. But
he might get a driver. Has he got a Driver of the Day card coming up this year? I think, did he get one last year maybe? Or maybe not. I don't know. Look, I can't remember. But it'll be his first proper cards will be Chrome next year, which is crazy to think a 35-year-old driver will be a rookie card in next year's set.
Yeah, that is true, actually. I didn't think about that. So
he's the same age as Vettel.
Yeah, that's mental that he's coming back and Vettel's leaving. In terms of Sebastian Vettel, what do you think? Audi, that's what I thought. But Audi's not until 2026. So you think he's got to sit out really for what? 2023, 2024, 2025. He ain't going to be able to sit out for 3 years and then come back and be this blazing glory. So I think he'd have to come back. Whatever team it is that Audi are replacing, he'll get signed for that team in 2024 or 5. Yeah,
no, look, which is it's Alfa Romeo. So Audi are buying Sauber, and Sauber still own the team, but they sold the naming rights to Alfa Romeo. So that's who Audi are buying.
Yeah. So I reckon
it's a bit of a weird one. Thinking Audi have bought Alfa Romeo, but yeah.
Are you looking forward to Audi coming into the sport? Do you think that'll give a force? They're going to be a big force
good for the sport. More actual, genuine manufacturers, I think, the better. You know, I was sad that Honda. I would have liked to see Honda stay in partnership with Red Bull. We had BMW many years ago with Williams, and they had their own team where they took over Sauber. But the more actual car manufacturers, the better. Would I have gone Audi or Porsche though? It's a tough one. I think Porsche has a bit more of a history. Well, so does Audi. They both got history with Formula One. They're the same ownership group, but I think it'd be really good for the sport having a major manufacturer, like another major manufacturer joining in.
Are they going to be developing their own engines as well?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to do everything, but they're buying the Sauber factory, the Alfa Romeo factory, so they've got the infrastructure there. But they'll be doing their own power.
Yeah, but Alfa Romeo don't make their own engines, do they?
Sorry, I just lost you there for a bit.
Alfa Romeo, they use Ferrari engine, didn't they?
They do, yeah, but it's just customer. They're a customer team, and obviously I think they get a discount being called Alfa Romeo because they're the same umbrella and
yeah.
It's always more just sponsorship. Alfa Romeo, they're a sponsor. Alfa Romeo don't make the cars.
Yeah.
Still Sauber that make the cars. Yeah.
So if Audi make their own engine, you would imagine at some point they're going to want a second team as well. So they'll probably buy another team and call it something else, like you say, Porsche or something else.
Well, there was talks that Red Bull and Porsche were going to have a partnership, but then Red Bull pulled out of that because they didn't want to be a secondary team to the works team.
Yeah.
So they announced it. There was like a press release earlier this year that Red Bull and Porsche were partnering up for the new set of regulations. But that's all fallen to the wayside because of Audi going in. Because Audi and Porsche are the same parent company.
Did you see that interview with Christian Horner and I can't remember what he's called, but he done like a podcast episode with quite a big podcast person. Can't remember his name. He used to be on like Dragon's Den or something. Did you see that interview?
No, I actually didn't know.
No, and he was talking about that. They were saying like, "Oh, you've been approached by Audi," and he said, "Yeah, what it is that we're known as quite a maverick brand. So like Red Bull's like, we do things our way, even if sometimes it's not conventional." And he said when we came into F1, we did things our way, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's different to how it's been done before." So when Audi looked to take them over, they wanted a controlling rights of, the things they said in public. Because obviously then it becomes a brand as opposed to like a car manufacturer brand. And the way Christian Horner would run it. And then and he just said, no, he said like they wanted too much control over how we would act and what we would say. And he said like, that's just not us. And we don't think we'd perform very well like that. So they pulled out of it at the last minute or something. So I thought that was a really good interview. I can't remember the name of the guy though. And I can't.
That's right. Yeah, I think with Christian, Red Bull aren't going to be told what to do by anyone. They're very much their own entity. But look, I think they'll continue with Honda. With the Red Bull powertrains, which they're getting support by Honda. I think they'll just continue with that, and I think it makes sense for both of them. And I think, I just don't understand why Honda left when they got a world champion engine and car to work with and partner with and advertise with.
I know, they went through... So they joined up with McLaren, didn't they? Came back, they went through all that slog, and McLaren said, like, this is going to take a few years to kick in. They went through all of that slog, all that hard work of doing all the research, development, and everything like that. And then McLaren were like, no, we're coming away from you because we've had enough. And then obviously they were with Red Bull, and with Red Bull they still had issues, and now they've come good. And I think, I wish McLaren was up there, But now McLaren are like, they're in no man's land at the minute, aren't they? They're sort of...
Yeah, they took a step. Well, I mean, last year obviously was a big overhaul to this year, but they were very strong last year. Lando was getting consistent podiums. Ricciardo won a race, but they didn't get it quite right this year. I mean, Lando's got one podium, I think. Was it in Imola? Earlier in the season, he got a third, but I think that's it this year. They've been a bit lackluster. Lando's consistently 7th or 8th, but they're just not doing damage at the front end, unfortunately.
It makes you wonder, where would you like to see, if McLaren don't buck their ideas up, where would you like to see Norris go?
I think, look, if Hamilton was going to move on, I think it would be pretty crazy to see Norris and Russell in the same car. I mean, they raced together in F2 and Russell was superior, but again, Lando was very, very young. Russell's got a few years on him. And I think Norris has improved immensely since he's come in F1 as well. So I think that'd be a pretty cool team if Russell and Norris, and I think it'd be like, Button and Hamilton at McLaren back in the day. The British Grand Prix would go mental with them two in the same car. I think that would be pretty cool.
Obviously, since we last spoke, I've created a website, hammondshobbies.com, and I always mention that the cards that I sell out of, I always thought it'd be Lewis and Max. I thought if I list Lewis and Max cards, they'll sell really quick. But it's not, it's Lando Norris. Lando Norris cards, it doesn't matter what set it's from, 2021, 2020, Sapphire, Chrome, TurboTax, it's always Lando Norris. That one sells like that. And I just think, I would love to see him in a championship winning, to see how he would fare against those guys. Whereas at the minute, he's not showing his full potential, I don't think.
Yeah, I think he'd hold his own, mate, to be honest. I mean, Leclerc's been a bit disappointing. Like, Leclerc seems to crack a lot under pressure. Like, when he was in the championship hunt in the early stages in Imola, he made the mistake and spun around, which gave Lando his first and only podium of this year. Lando seems pretty solid. I mean, look, he kind of shut the bed a little bit, so to speak, in Russia last year when he was leading in the rain. He should have listened to the team and come in, and he stayed out, and it cost him the win. But it was a little bit of a learning curve, but I think he would grow from that. I think he'd do extremely well. Like, I think maybe not quite to what Russell did this year with Hamilton in the Merc, but I think he'd get to that level pretty quickly, I think. I still think Russell's a little bit of a better driver than Norris all round, though.
I would love to see Lando Norris replace Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, look, I mean,
because then
Sainz isn't too bad. He's very consistent, but yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, but he's not like this is my definition of like great. When we talk about he's the greatest driver of all time and stuff, you can pick out specific events, days, weeks, or even whole years where that driver performed really well. But where you start talking about the greatest of all time is consistency of like, you see that whether you like Lewis or Max or whoever it is, when Max was in a Red Bull that wasn't performing that well, he was there or thereabouts. He was third, fourth. He was always there or thereabouts. So if one of them top two guys crashed, he was there. Lewis, it's always Lewis. If he's not winning, he's always second, third, fourth. You always see that year in, year out. And if you look at all the title standings, every year, even when he did, I remember when it was him and Button at McLaren, he was always working his way through the field. He always got himself into fourth, fifth, or whatever. Carlos Sainz, I just don't see that from him. He either has a good weekend or he's just I don't see him as one of the greats. Whereas I think Charles Leclerc has that potential, but he seems to, like you said, I noticed that he comes out a lot and he apologizes. Oh, I'm really sorry, I crashed out and it was a lack of concentration. It was my fault. He seems to say that a lot, and I think his confidence is starting to drop. If you listen to him in the press conferences and that, he seems like he puts his head down and he's like, yeah, it was my fault. And whereas obviously Max is always going up. Like Max believes he's this superior being or whatever. And same with Lewis.
Well,
Yeah,
look, I couldn't agree more. I think the underlining one was, do you remember turn one in Suzuka this year in the wet? So I think Leclerc was on pole and he had the inside line, and Max just in the wet went cleanly around him outside the racing line. It was just like Max's confidence is just through the roof. And whereas Leclerc, you can see he's a bit damaged. I think he needs to reset over the break and
I'm back.
Leclerc's got the talent. He's definitely got the talent.
Definitely.
I used to watch F2 and F3 very, very closely. I haven't as much this year because I don't think the field has been that exciting to watch, in all honesty. Been a bit disappointed by it. But yeah, the years when Leclerc and Russell were in F2, you had De Vries, you had some really amazing talent, and Leclerc was supreme. He won them back-to-back as a rookie. Only Piastri and Russell have done that. They're the only three drivers to do that.
What F2 drivers do you see up and coming next? Now, what would be a good card?
I don't know. It's not a strong field. Like, Dragovic was a third-year driver. Good on him. He drove extremely well this year, but, your supreme talents win it in their first year. I was looking forward to Teo Pourchaire because, he was only 17 for half of last season, got pole in Monaco in the wet. I was really, really excited to see what he could do this year, and he just didn't quite do it. I don't think there's a huge talent pool. I mean, Liam Lawson on his day, he's kind of like a Sainz. Like, on his day, he's really, really strong, but he's very inconsistent. And I thought Yuri Vips, before his whole incident, he was, looking fairly strong as well. And again, he had some amazing races, but he's dropped off the boiler given what's happened to him, and all through what his own doing, I guess. But Logan Sargent showing some really, really good promise. I think Williams are looking at him for the only vacant seat on the grid, and he's part of their academy. But there's no one genuinely I'm looking at there going, they're going to be a Formula One world champion. I'm so excited for them to come through. I was with Piastri. I was with Mick, obviously, for the nostalgia. But before that, you had some really strong fields with De Vries, Norris, Russell, Leclerc in the late 2018, 2019, those years. I think this year's field's not that strong, to be honest.
I've never actually. With Mick Schumacher, I think, it's sort of like that romance of because his dad's in a coma, and if he came out and performed really well, it'd be a really a romance story.
It would. I think so many.
But I've never actually rated him that highly.
Well,
Like if you watch a lot of his races, and I know he came into it obviously 2021. He was a rookie, wasn't he? So. I don't know, I haven't seen that spark. I haven't seen that, even if it was him going from last to 10th or 9th or 8th, you don't see that often. And that's what obviously Michael Schumacher was, that's where he came into his own. And the Lewises of the world and the Maxes of the world, they will go from last to somehow they're 8th. And you're like, how did they do that? And it'll be consistent. It'll be week in, week out. I just don't see that from him. I don't know how much of that is his fault or the Haas, but even Magnussen, I think that really done him, didn't it? This Brazil, I think Schumacher qualified last, didn't he? And Magnussen
he did. Yeah, there's a really funny meme. It's like Gordon Ramsay. It's like you're a Haas sandwich. It's got Mick, the grid, and then Magnussen. I found that quite funny, but. Yeah, unfortunately, and even with F2 and F3 for Mick, it took a season for him to get up to speed, and then obviously he won the championship. But he made hard work of winning that championship, and again with who he raced against, there wasn't a really strong field. It's not he beat Russell or Leclerc or Norris to the title. I don't think he beat Schwartzman, and where's Schwartzman now? He didn't beat a lot of people in those fields. So I think F2's been quite weak for a couple of years now.
And he was backed by Ferrari really early on, weren't he? And he was doing a lot of their testing and promotional stuff, where he was driving around on track and stuff. So I don't know, maybe he had a little bit of an advantage there, I suppose. But well, there you go. I heard that comment the other day, actually, that there isn't that much big excitement, talent coming through from F2 to F1 now. So maybe with these ones that are coming in this year, maybe we'll see them settle in for a little while, for a few years. And then we'll just see your odd people retiring, maybe like Lewis and I don't know who the other eldest drivers are now, because it was Vettel.
Hulkenberg.
Yeah, Hulkenberg. Yeah. That's true. He'll come back for 1 year and then retire. He probably will, actually. I don't know, Hulkenberg, I never rated him either. He was consistent, but he was a midfield consistent, weren't he? He'd
always get that 6th or 7th and consistently, but he was in the same team with Checo, and Checo got the odd podium, and Nico could never do it. I think Brazil 2011, was it 2011 when he was in the Force India and he was leading in the wet and he aquaplaned into turn 1 and crashed into Lewis? If he was a genuine chance of winning that race in the wet, and he just cracked. And same with Hockenheim in 2019. That's when Renault decided to dump him as well. He was on for a podium and he spun out in the wet into the barrier, and it cost him a podium. So again, I think he overthought. I think there was that monkey on his back. He never had the podium. And when he was in a position to get one, he just shit himself. He couldn't quite go through with it. But again, super consistent for a lower team, and I think he'll be good for Haas, like Magnussen, and get some points here and there for them. But yeah, I don't. He's not a world champion.
Yeah, I was listening to one of the commentators, and they were saying Haas just need consistent finishes, not. They just need to regularly finish. And you look at Mick Schumacher, he has crashed a lot, and he crashes the car.
Well, he costs him a lot of money. That's the problem. Whereas Hulkenberg's not going to crash the car. He's going to jump in there. He'll match Magnussen, might even beat Magnussen. So I think it's good for the team in that sense. But I think maybe it's just a race, pressing the reset button for them next year, just to get a bit more consistency, and maybe they look to the future for one of those seats in 2024. But I understand why Haas have done it. It's maybe not the most popular choice for people, because I know there's a lot of comments on social media, someone else to go, and Nick's been harshly done by. But Nick's cost them a lot of money in car repairs.
Yeah. Well, when you get to F1, there's only 20 spaces, and it's either sink or swim, isn't it? If you reach the pinnacle of motorsport and you're just dithering. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to last very long.
Unless your dad buys a Formula One team and your name's Lance Stroll.
I mean, Lance Stroll's had his moments of brilliance.
I know what you second
mean,
in the wet qualifying, but no, like, he's another one that's just not going anywhere. But he's not going anywhere because his dad owns the car.
Yeah. I always thought, I might keep hold of some Nikita Mazepin cards because I can. If his dad throws enough money at someone, he'll take him back. Do you know what I mean?
Does he have any money? It's all frozen. The Western world won't accept his money anymore because they've frozen all the oligarchs' money. I
hope he doesn't come back. I don't think he deserves a space back. I remember one race where he cried, didn't he? Like he tried really, really hard to like get out of Q3 or I don't know, something, and he was like crying about it. And I thought, oh my god, you can tell it broke him. But well, there you go. That's our take on F1 and F2. What do you think about the card market? What are your thoughts on, obviously, the whole market has dropped, and not only the card market, but also cryptocurrency, stocks and shares. Obviously, like we were talking about the housing market. So it's not just cards. So this isn't a card-related thing, but obviously it's just the worldwide economy.
We're going.
But what do you think about the economy of the cards?
Oh, look, with cards, obviously they've pulled back. I think it's pulling back to a normal level. I think certain high-end cards are still always going to have a lot of value, certain really rare ones and one-of-ones and super refractors and all that. But it's getting back to a level where, it's still expensive for certain cards, but it's getting back to a level where collectors can actually, to a degree, almost buy the cards that they want, where they were getting unobtainable and speculators and investors were buying them. I'm holding a lot of cards, but I've only bought one of each, the ones I wanted for my own collection. And look, in my view, I've calculated what I wanted to pay for a card, and I bought up 2020 really early. From about once it went crazy after the National, I already had all my cards by then. So, it's nice to sit on something and think it's worth a lot of money, but I also think it's nice now that it's a bit more obtainable. And we're just discussing that earlier before, the box prices. I think it's nice that they're more affordable, so more people can afford to open product, and, genuine, hobby collectors out there can rip some wax and have some fun doing that. Because, last year, I pre-ordered 2 boxes of Chrome from the US for what I was paying for 1 box last year. So it's definitely a lot more affordable at the moment. I'm sure it'll go up. I don't know. But, I think it's a good thing for genuine hobby enthusiasts. But if you're a speculator or an investor, I think a lot of people might have done some dough.
Yeah,
I've been buying up. I've been buying some cards that I couldn't afford that I can now afford. Like I bought a Lewis portrait, $3.99 from 2020. Only a PSA 7. I collect the card, not the grade, and I got it for $500 US. I mean, they were more expensive at that raw at release. So I'm chuffed just to finish my portrait set. So just there's good opportunities like that out there for collectors to finish their sets and whatnot.
Yeah, when I'm looking to complete binders, I purposely always search PSA 7 Lewis Hamilton number 156 or whatever it is, because I know that they're cheaper than buying it raw. So like it's cheaper to get it like that, crack it open, put it in a binder, than it is to buy a raw version of it. So PSA 6, PSA 7, even PSA 8s. I mean, at the minute, PSA 9s are basically going for what raws are, and then it's only PSA 10s.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because raw is meant to be, in theory, raw by Topps' guarantee, raw is meant to be an 8, or you can send it back and they'll send you a new one. So realistically, 8 should be the break-even point at a raw. So you're taking a big risk buying a raw. I'd buy a 9 for the same price as a raw any day of the week. It wouldn't bother me at all. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I have been thinking a lot lately, obviously, because I created the store, I haven't actually got that many slabs. I've only got like 2 or 3 slabs. So I have been thinking, right, I need to start learning how to submit cards to PSA, what to look out for, what type of cards do and don't do well. I personally, I was talking to someone and I said, I might start grading some of the original 2020 Turbo Attacks. And this person is into high-end collectibles, and he buys like the one-of-ones and all that. And he said, no, Turbo Tax is rubbish. And I said, yeah, but you can grade a TurboTax for $15 now, which is probably about £12. And I reckon someone would pay 30-40 quid for a nice graded PSA 9 or 10, Lewis TurboTax, especially in the TurboTax groups. You very rarely see a graded TurboTax come up. And I just thought, that's a low end. And there are people out there that, like you said, that they just want to collect. They want to have a little, bundle of PSA cards, and they don't want to spend £8,000 on a Charles Leclerc 1-of-1 autograph. Do you know what I mean? I can't afford that sort of them cards. So, I'd love to have, this is my little pet project that I'm going to start working on. I want to get a PSA 10 of every Lewis card that's come out since 2020, and get it in the slab cases. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
Whatever they're called. I want to get it spray painted by a graffiti artist, all purple, and then have loads of Lewis Hamilton logos on it and that. So because you see at these card shows and all these YouTubers, they always have these black cases. They just look really dull and boring. And I think that's your £30,000 collection or whatever. And the cases just look dull, and they just look boring. So I thought I'll get it all spray painted with Lewis Hamilton logo on it, and almost like the track tag type look. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
So I was thinking that. So what I've started doing is I've got one binder for every Lewis Hamilton each year of Lewis Hamilton, and I've got 3 of every card that's come out. So I'm going to start selecting ones of those to send off to PSA and then build up this collection. But I'm a bit behind with grading. I've never ever submitted any card to grade.
I've only recently started doing it, but we've got a really good there's the company's just called The Hobby, and they do group submissions, and literally it's cheaper than doing it yourself, and they send it all off insured. You fill out the form, you pay them directly. It's just such a great service. So I use them in Australia, but they're a local company in Melbourne. Because he opened that because people they get really sort of overwhelmed by the whole grading process, and I was looking into it, and I didn't know where to start, and I was scared of shipping the cards off. So, there might be something similar in the UK that you can look into. But, if you're in Australia, I'd definitely hook you up with them because they're really good at it. But I don't know that. I'm sure there might be someone similar in the UK does group submissions.
I wanted to figure out how to do it myself so that obviously, one, you're getting the best rates, but also, I don't see any benefit of using a third-party company because then you're adding a layer of risk on for normally not much gain because they need to submit it and then they need to make something out of it, so they add a couple quid on.
Well, I think because they're a larger company, they get a cheaper submission rate. So because we pay less than what it would cost me to do it myself. So whatever costs $99 cost me 99 Australian dollars. Because I think obviously they've got a corporate account because of the volume, and they do make money on it. But because they're doing such a large volume, they pass a saving on to the customer as well.
That's good.
I'm sure not everyone else works like that, but I'm better off financially doing it through them. And they ship it as well. That's the main thing, because shipping in Australia is ridiculous. Even to send you one card with a tracking number is $25, so £15. It's crazy at the moment.
Yeah, no, I suppose, I don't know how different a post is in Australia to UK, but that's something that I've been looking at. I did go, because I've paid the £99 or dollars or whatever it is to become a PSA, whatever they call it, club member. And I have been looking into it, but like you say, I don't know, it is a minefield. It asks you what type of service you want and what thing you want back and the card and what sets it from and all that. And I was like, I'll do this another day. And now I've just got I've got about 100 and something cards that I want to submit that I've just put to the side, and I keep thinking, I'll do that, and I just haven't got around to it. The only plus side of that is PSA fees have just gone down, and now they're currently for sport cards, they're doing $15, which is 12 quid, and at that sort of level, I'm happy to send, even if I sent 10 cards, which I think is the minimum, it's going to cost me $150, which I don't mind doing that. I was thinking I might...
Sorry, my cat has just walked in front of me.
Hello, cat.
Sorry, I'm listening to you. You just walked in there. It's good. Grading costs went up too high because they couldn't meet demand through COVID and everything else. So it's good that it's recorrecting because it is getting more affordable, and that's why I've started to do some of my cards as well. But only so it's more like some of the Futera relics I've got and stuff like that I've been sending rather than the Chrome stuff.
I'm surprised because you've got a lot of autograph cards, didn't you? I'm surprised you don't just get them, where you can either get the card graded or the autograph graded. If you get the autograph graded, as long as the autograph is within the card and it hasn't gone off the edge or anything, normally they come back like an auto 10. So you could get a lot of your cards in slabs that say auto 10. The card might only be a PSA 7, but you'll never know that unless you pay for that extra service. So I noticed a lot of these guys with Chrome 2020 autographs, they always say auto 10 because you're almost guaranteed because they sign it on the little sticker. Obviously I showed you earlier my gold Ray Wave collection. I was thinking, I might submit them all under as just the autograph being graded, so I get loads of 9s and 10s.
Yeah, the only thing with the autograph, they do check the pen stroke. So if there's like streakiness in the pen, then they actually grade on that rather than the quality of the actual signature. So it's like the pen, whether it goes off card. So if you got your own texture and you're running down and Leclerc's walking past you and it doesn't come out perfectly or whatever, I just do it as authentic for some of the nicer ones that I've got. And I've sent a couple to PSA and I'm waiting for them to come back. Like I did my Futera collection, which all but the Schumacher came back, which apparently PSA won't authenticate any Schumacher autographs at the moment unless there's video proof or direct proof, just because they're too nervous to do it. So I've got, all 62 of my 63 signed cards came back. So it's really frustrating. Schumacher was there in front of me signing the card and they wouldn't put it in a slab for me, but what do you do? They did the Hamilton one, which is the one that's worth the most money, and Sterling Moss, Nicky Lauda, people that have passed away, but I couldn't get the Schumacher in a slab.
I remember the last, I think it was either the first chat we done or the second one, I can't remember which one, and I remember you saying, no, I'll never sell my Futura set, no, that's like really personal to me. I went, yeah, you will though, if someone offered you enough money. You're like, nope, and then at one point you was thinking about it, weren't you?
Yeah, look, I did, just because of figures that were thrown at me and everything else.
You started getting a lot of offers, didn't you?
It wasn't the right time. So, look, I've still got it. I haven't sold it. I'm on the fence with it for now. So, yeah, look, I think if I did sell it, I might look at the Hamilton one day. I look at those cards and, they mean a lot. Like, it's memories of meeting Nicky Lauda and Sterling Moss. And, I don't know that I will sell the set. I might just sell the Lewis card at one point. But, the Futera cards have dropped off a little bit. But, again, I don't think... there was always going to be a recorrection because there's, 280 odd of those cards out there. More were going to service out of the woodwork with the prices they were achieving. But I think when cards go up again, it will be a card that goes up because it's Lewis's only packet card for a long, long time till 2020 Chrome. There are some check cards that are dated before it and everything else or after it with Formula One, but they're from a magazine and they're not actually like from a packet, like a proper card manufacturer like Futera or Topps. And, mine, as it stands, is the only authenticated autograph in the world on one of those cards. So it's still a very unique card. There's another one out there that apparently got knocked back by PSA with an earlier autograph. But, I don't know what's happening with that one.
I saw, because obviously I chat to different types of people in this hobby. And I was chatting to one guy who bought one of those Lewis Futura cards that you've got. Not a signed one, just a normal one. And I think he paid like 10 or 12 grand for it. And now I've seen them obviously dropping. I think, God, like there's so many investors out there that just chuck so much money at some of these cards, and when the market drops 30, 40%, 50% in some case, like that's a lot of money to lose on cards. So you really have to, you have to hold on to it, and like you said, until some point they go back up, hopefully, or to just take the loss.
Look, I think they'll go up. I mean, Lewis is always going to be considered a grade of the sport. For Max to get to 7 or 8 is going to, it probably won't happen no matter how good he is. Just with the way Formula One works and regulation changes. But the way I look at it, imagine Michael Jordan's first ever packet card. There was only 280 base of them. That's all there is of this Lewis card. So I still think it's a very valuable card. I think the people that paid the 300 grand for the PSA 9s, might struggle for a very long time. I don't think there'll be a 10 because on the side of them, the way that they were cut, there's like speckles on the side. I think the guillotine wasn't sharp. I just don't think that there's possibly a 10 out there just for that reason. Every single example I've seen of the card has them on the left-hand back side. But yeah, I think it's a great card. And, I think, it just people are sort of panicking because there's a few coming out and it was just, people initially thought this thing is so rare, we're not going to see any of them. And that's why I think they went up here and they're now sort of here again. But, for a base card and they're still getting $8 grand, it's still a pretty good price for a piece of cardboard.
Yeah, that is true. It is still crazy. Even with the drop in the market, in my mind, I just assume everything's cheap now. So, like, when you go on eBay and I type in, like, I'm trying to complete an entire set of gold Ray Waves from 2020, I look up and I see, like, Max Verstappen gold Ray Wave, just a portrait, not an autograph, just a normal portrait one. And it's like, they want 14k for it. And I'm like, geez, no one's paying that for these sort of cards. But I don't know, if you, like I said, if you've bought a card and you think, do you know what, I don't care if this sells or not, you can put it up at a high price because you can just ride out that recession storm or whatever, and you just never know what comes along. A prime example is recently, and I hopefully he's watching, a guy called Ollie from China. He bought a George Russell PSA 9, the F1 Dynasty. I had that up for sale, and I looked on what's that website, 130 Point. And that showed the last recently sold George Russell with the glove patch, which is exactly what I had. Mine was graded a PSA 9. And it sold for like $1,500. And the pound just dropped. And I was like, oh, that's like £1,000. And I just thought, I don't want to sell it for that. Like, I'd rather keep it. So I put it on my website for like $2,650, and someone bought it, and I was like, and I thought, I should have put it up for more. But like that's a prime example of like sometimes a lot of people panic about comps, but that's if you want to sell a card today, isn't it? Like if you want to sell that Lewis card today, you would have to say, what's the last one that sold? Right, I'll go under that because you want to sell it today. But if you think, what's it worth to me, you might say that card to me is worth £25,000. And I could say, yeah, but Matt, the comps are 10,000. And you say, I don't care. I want 25,000 for it. And if you put it up and someone buys it, then that's what it's worth.
No, that's it. Look, I think with mine, there's a little bit more weight behind it, given the autograph on it. But yeah, exactly.
No, but you know what I mean. I'm talking
not going to
general.
Now, I know what you're saying, but I'm not going to get. My time to sell it would have been in February, March this year. But I'm not sure. Look, I haven't lost anything. The whole set owes me $300 Australian from 2009 when I bought it. So if you don't sell it, you haven't lost anything. So it's not like I paid 300 grand for the card and then. So I haven't lost anything. So it's a good position to be in. You can always what if I sold it? What if I did this? What if I did that? But here now I've got the card and it doesn't owe me that much money.
I remember, you said that before when we chatted before, because I think you had several of them, didn't you? Not autographed, but you had several of that card, and you just gave them away to friends and stuff in the hobby and stuff.
Yeah, well,
at the time.
They were hard to find, but like there was no weight behind Formula One cards like being expensive. Like it was just, oh shit, these cards are really, really hard to find. But when you did find them, they weren't expensive. I searched like for 2 or 3 years to find that Futera set from 06. 05 I could get whenever I wanted for $50 for a full set. But the 06 set was so rare, and I finally found it was like a big bulk lot of like 400 cards from Japan. I think there was 3 or 4 Lewis's in there. I definitely had 3, and I gave 2 away and kept 1. I've got a feeling that there was a 4th in there, but I can't track what happened to that one.
Are you still in contact with the people that you gave them Lewis's to?
I am. Yeah.
Have you said to them, what have you done with it? Have you sold it or anything? Or
one guy is in the UK actually. I met him at the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2012 when I was young and backpacking, and he was just a big Lewis fan, and he basically gave me a Kimi Räikkönen signed mini helmet because we were drinking beers. He's like, "Oh, you can just have this helmet," and we just kept chatting on Facebook. And just because he was a Lewis fan, I sent it to him. I just thought it'd be something cool for him. He helped me out. I helped him out.
Which is the way it should
be. What was that? Sorry.
That's the way it should be between collectors.
Yeah, exactly right. So look, he couldn't find it last I spoke to him, but he understands. Like he knows what they saw. Look, this thing would have been carried around in a program. Like at best, it'd be like a 7. I think my signed one would have got a 7. Like the guy from the hobby looked at it, is like, look, it'd probably be a 7. Sorry, my cat is just fucking walking around everywhere.
Hi, cat.
Arthur, very annoying.
Hi, Arthur.
So yeah, I think I think it would be like around that sort of grade. It's not going to be a 9, but he couldn't find. And the other one's an old collector, John. He just liked old cards. He was a nice guy. I think I sold him a whole set, 1 to 100, the full set for like $100, just to help subsidize my bulk purchase of the cards. And he just wanted it to put in a folder. And he's a nice guy, and that's why I did it. Just helping other collectors out.
I mean, this could be happening though all the time, and people just don't realize it. I mean, obviously I've got 50,000 cards, and I've had people message me saying, "Hi Glenn, have you got any, I don't know, Felipe Drugovich cards?" Yeah, and I just don't think nothing of it, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, you can have it for £2," and I send them out. But who knows? He might get signed for Ferrari, become a world champion, 2-time world champion. His cards might go through the roof, and I'll be like, "Oh, I had 10 of them." You just don't know, do you?
Yeah. You never know. I'd be surprised with Felipe Drugovich.
I'm just using that as an example, but you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, you don't. Like,
you just
I never
don't know.
thought these cards, like these Futera cards were worth, even in like. So I used to search for the relics up until about 2012 every week to try and build the relic set, and like even then, like I never saw a Schumacher one, I never saw a Senna relic, and I kind of stopped, and then I started looking again in like maybe 2017, 18, and they were still only getting like $30. You could buy the Ralph Schumacher, the Montoya, the Sato ones all for about $30. No one bought them.
Yeah, that's mental.
But the Schumacher ones never came up, and the Senna ones never came up. They were even then, I think because they were predominantly released in Japan, and both those drivers were very popular in Japan, I think people just held them. So I know a few more have surfaced, and I know, a lot of high-end people really rate those cards now. And I do have a Schumacher Gold relic, and I've got a Senna relic, and they're both PSA 9s, the top grades for both of them. I was very lucky. But that's from searching and networking for effectively 15 years to get those cards.
I know. I remember you sent me a picture of that gold relic Schumacher, and it was so weird. The same day, someone contacted me, someone who's high end like he spends a lot of money on F1 cards, but he likes to remain anonymous. He said to me, "Glenn, if you can ever get hold of the I want a collection." He said, if you ever can get hold of any Michael Schumacher from like Grid 92 and Futura set, let me know. And I said, oddly enough, this guy from Australia, he's just sent me a picture, and he straight away was like, "How much does he want for it? Tell him I'm interested," and all that. And then I said to you, "How much do you want for it?" And you were like, "Nah, I'm not looking to sell."
I'm not. I'm really not with the Schumacher one. Look, to me, Schumacher's the greatest of all time. I don't think I'll ever get something as nice, unless I absolutely need cash desperately. I don't think I'd ever sell the Schumacher one. The Senna one, probably for the right. Like, I love Senna and the history of Senna, but I never watched him. Like, I don't have that emotional connection from watching Senna. Whereas Schumacher, my whole life growing up, Schumacher was Schumacher, and it's very special to have like a piece of his race suit in such a beautiful card. And those 2005 golds, they're one of the most beautiful cards I've ever seen. The 06 golds look like crap, in all honesty, compared to them. I've got an Alonso 06 one, which is a PSA now. But the 05 ones are just the best.
I need to collect more of the Futura cards. I've pretty much... There's a website called laststicker.com. I don't know if you use that one. And if you type in...
Yeah, the German or Dutch website?
I'm not too sure. I mean, it's all in English, so...
maybe not, yeah. I've heard of it, yeah.
I use that website just because you can type in, say, just motorsport, and it comes up with not just F1, but loads of other ones. But you always find, like, this set that I've never heard of, like 1976 F1 Grand Prix, or like the Grand Prix set, and I think, oh, what's that? And I click on it and it shows you all the images, and I thought, oh, I'll have to start collecting that. And I look it up on eBay, and sometimes they're really dirt cheap. Like someone was selling the magazine and the whole collection of the cards. I think in total it was like 100 quid, and there's a set I've never seen before, and that was a Formula One set. There weren't anything amazing in there, like in terms of Schumachers or Sennas and stuff. I can't remember what year it was, but touching on your point about growing up watching, I'm the same as you. I never watched Senna race ever. He passed away before I even got into the sport.
I was 5 when he died, so
yeah, yeah. And for me, it's actually the opposite. I grew up not. I don't know how to word this without sounding like an idiot, but I grew up hating Michael Schumacher. Like, I was a McLaren fan, Mika Hakkinen, David Coulthard. Like, I used to have a little David Coulthard hat, and it was like every week, Michael Schumacher. And I used to like, and every time like he did something that was slightly questionable, I'd be like, look, he's cheating, he's a cheater. And, so when people started collecting these cards, I always looked at Michael Schumacher cards like, no, I don't want it, but now obviously now that when Lewis started chasing down Michael Schumacher's title, like records, it actually gave me an appreciation for like actually what he achieved and what he'd done. It's like what you said, there were all these top end guys, they're all trying to bend the rules, they're all trying to push the other person off the road, they all have that aggressive, selfish nature, because otherwise they wouldn't be where they are. So now I've become as I've got older, I appreciate Michael Schumacher a lot more, and I've started to look at Michael Schumacher cards with a lot more affection than say what I used to for him.
Oh mate, look, I actually hated Schumacher as well, bro. I was a McLaren fan, a Coulthard fan, a Hakkinen fan.
High five!
I had the Coulthard, the Scottish flag, cat, which I got him to sign in 2003, I think it was. He came over to me because I was wearing. I was like, David, yeah, and I couldn't stand him. And then when he came back with Mercedes, he was a lot more chilled out with the fans. And I got like so many, because I went to 5 races in 2010. I think I got like 20 autographs off him, and I got all my stuff signed, and I couldn't believe it. And then I started like, going back and watching the races again. And I'm a retrospective Schumacher fan. I wish in Australia, we like the underdog. We don't like someone that wins all the time. I think
same in the UK.
Part of our culture. So, yeah, it was really, I didn't love Schumacher at the time, but I wish I did. And now looking back on it, yeah, I'm a huge Schumacher fan now. I love him, like, retrospectively. So
it sounds like you and me have been on the same journey, if you like.
Yeah. So 02 and 04, I saw him win the Australian Grand Prix. So I got to see Schumacher win a race. At the time, I didn't want him to win. I was disappointed. Coulthard won the Australian Grand Prix in 03 though, and I was so happy. But yeah, look, now I've got such an appreciation for Michael Schumacher, and yeah, I genuinely think he's the greatest of all time. That's my view on him. And I know he did some dirty stuff, but they all do. Like they're all arseholes. Any opportunity, anything they can do to get a competitive edge, they'll do it. He's done some stupid things that, as you look back, regret. Like Vettel with, even with Lewis, the bump in Azerbaijan, in Baku a few years ago. Like he said, I regret doing that. But he goes, now I don't regret it because it's made us become better friends. And
they seem quite close.
You do stupid things in the heat of the moment, but I love Schumacher. So that card's very special to me just for that, because it was my childhood in watching Formula One.
Yeah,
the German and Italian national anthem every Sunday evening.
I actually got to know the German national anthem better than the English one, because I just heard it like every weekend. I never heard the British, sort of thing. It's crazy, really. But yeah, and that actually leads to like Lewis and Max going for to now. Lewis, whether you like the way that they treat each other, Max and Lewis even early doors, this is before Max really was a threat to him or his title championships, he never referred to him in any press conferences. They used to say, what do you think about Max? What and he used to go, yeah, he's okay. Yeah, well, you know, he never ever spoke about him, and he never ever praised him. Like, people have said, what do you think about Max's world titles? And he always says, yeah, well done to Max, but yeah, we done a really good race today, you know. And that leads into, like, then obviously people then go back to Max and say, oh, do you know Lewis has said this about you? You're still young, or you're this, or you're that. So then there's always going to be that, you know, because they're both selfish, they're both playing mind games. Even before, like I say, before Max is already now in a world champion, you know, a race-winning car, that now he's like, right, that guy has put me down for 4 years, I'm going to go into... Do you know what I mean? Like, it creates that...
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lewis would definitely feel threatened by Max because, you know, this guy, he's a freak.
Yeah.
Like, he's had a car twice that's good enough to win a championship, and he's delivered it twice. You know, obviously we can argue circumstance for 2021, but he's still 2 from 2 in a capable car. But even what he did, that Red Bull was the 3rd best car on the grid for a large portion. He was in it, and he would win the odd race here and there.
Mate,
like,
if you say that again, Max will refuse to talk to you.
What was that?
Said if you say that again, Max will refuse to talk to you ever again.
For next, no, I'm very comfortable with the outcome of last year's championship. Not just on the last ruling, but
did you hear about that? Though? He refused
to
talk to Sky Sports because of Ted Kravitz just saying pretty much what you said. Oh, last year was questionable the way that he won it, and then Max was like, right, I'm not talking to Sky Sports.
Yeah, I said we could argue that it was questionable, but I think the problem you've got is a lot of these younger generation fans that watch, you know, that are into F1 from Netflix, they read into comments like that, and then they become toxic off the back of that, and then that's why there's so much hate on social media. Like, ESPN put a post on about the whole Ocon. You know, when Ocon tried to unlap himself against Max in Brazil and he took him out? Mm-hmm. And they just posted that with no context as if to compare it with the Lewis incident. And if your mainstream media is posting shit like that, no wonder the fan base, particularly the newer fan base, are toxic because they don't have an understanding of Formula One and how it's worked over the years. And they're just feeding off what they hear and see currently. And then that's why, you know, social media is just a shit show on the, you know, there's Formula One. Are you on like Formula One meme pages and all that, you know, F1 Forever group and all that? It's just, mate, some of the posts there are just unbelievable. Like,
I know, I see you always trying to wind them up.
So
I always see you post the contradiction to whatever they're commenting. You put the opposite argument across.
Yeah, I just throw some grenades out there. It's a bit of fun. I love the comments back. And yeah, mate, Lewis isn't a saint. Max isn't a saint. They're both amazing drivers, and they both what they've got at this point in their careers. And I hope they battle at the front of the grid together next year, and we have plenty of drama and see them again. But I think from Lewis's standpoint, though, if Mercedes do have a really good car, Russell's going to be there to take points off him. So it's be tough.
So we talk about Lewis and Max, and I was thinking this obviously off the back of Brazil last week or week before. I was thinking if Mercedes do have a race-winning car from the get-go next year, will Lewis even win another world title? Because now he has to compete with George in the same equipment, Max in arguably better equipment, Charles Leclerc in there or thereabouts with the Red Bull as well. So if you've got a 4-way fight, I think that's really going to separate the men from the boys, because if reliability is there for all three teams, and you've got, say, I mean, we're really going to see the pecking order, aren't we? We're probably going to see Perez fall behind, Carlos Sainz fall behind, then it's going to be Charles, Lewis, George, and Max. And I think that's a really exciting season. I can't remember having 4 drivers that could potentially win a championship.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I can't remember that. I don't know if you recall seasons better.
I think 2010 probably would have been the last time. You had coming into the last race, I think mathematically the 2 Red Bulls, Alonso and Hamilton, were mathematically could have won the title in 2010 coming into the race. But yeah.
Oh, mate, I'll ask you this, right? Who's the driver that I know we were just talking about social media and it being toxic, but I still feel that we can say our opinions but not be nasty about it. Who's the driver that you least like on the grid?
Ooh, It's a tough one. I don't know.
You've actually met a lot of them face to face as well, so you're probably a better gauge than what I am. I've only seen them on TV.
Look, to be honest with you, Lewis has changed a lot. Like, he used to be really cool and nice. And I quite like Lewis being a McLaren fan as well initially. I feel like he's a different person on the cameras. Like, if there's a couple of fans managed to get to him now, like, it's like drawing blood out of the stone to get an autograph. Like, he's not the most open person, whereas Max will still sign autographs, no problems. In that respect, like, it's disappointing. And Lewis, like, he'll go through side entrances and try and get away from the fans, like even Schumacher did. Schumacher wouldn't sign, he'd just wave at you, whereas like Lewis actually goes out of his way to avoid fans at the track. So that's why part of the reason why I'm not a huge Lewis fan as well. But in terms of like, yeah, look, I don't know. I think like Latifi, Stroll, like I don't really enjoy having them on the grid. There could be better people in those cars. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question.
I'll give you mine. Fernando Alonso. Hate the guy. I don't hate him, but I just can't stand it. Can't stand it when he talks. I can't stand when he does well.
Yeah,
great driver. He's probably one. If it weren't for his personality, I think he would be up there. We'd be talking about him in the same conversation with greatest of all time. But he grates on me. He really does.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat. I mean, when he came to the sport, I guess it was kind of like a Max to Schumacher, but then he never sort of went beyond those two because he, changed. Look, he's made his own bet. He's hopped teams. He's thrown teams under the bus with his comments. He's moody as well. When you meet him, like, if he's okay, like he can be all right, and then other times he's like, not interested as well, dealing with the fans in that regard. So he's a bit of an interesting cat.
I just the thing that really makes me, and sorry, hang on, I'm trying to think how I should say this, but over the years, obviously, I've seen him self-destruct his own career with the way that he conducts himself. And that is, absolutely, like you said, by throwing teams under the bus, disclosing certain information when he shouldn't, saying certain things about other drivers and competitors. And this year, he criticised Lewis, I think, twice. He said, this guy can only win from the front. And then he also commented another time saying, like, I can't remember, he said, this guy needs to go back to driving school. I can't remember what he said, but... and then he said something along the lines of, Sebastian Vettel's 4 titles mean more than Lewis's 7. And in the end, because Lewis never responds to it, when they ask him, what do you think about it? And he goes, did he say that? Well, that's his opinion, blah, blah, blah. Lewis never really gets into that argument with him. And then I think Lewis had enough, and he posted a picture of him on the podium. Did you see it? Like, first step.
Yeah, it was him on
with him with his hand on Alonso's head. Alonso on, like, second or something. And he's just put a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And it just... Every time that Alonso makes a comment like that, like, Lewis is this, Lewis is that, and I'm like, Lewis beat you in his rookie year. So no matter, you can say he's the worst driver in the world, but then in definition, you're the worst driver in the world because you didn't perform as well as him in the same equipment. Like, you can't even say, that's because he was at Red Bull and da-da-da-da-da.
I think Alonso's, he likes to throw some comments out there and whatnot, but yeah, I can see it. Look, I'm not a huge Alonso fan. Like,
and he's still doing it. I think
he was a very good driver and had the talent, but I still think Vettel's a better driver all round over their career than Alonso is.
You could say, like, but Glenn, he's learned from his mistakes and all of that. I don't think he has, because one, he's still saying them comments. Two, Alpine, this year, and they were like, Fernando Alonso's been telling us that he's going to stay with us for another year. Like, he's left us in the dark. Like, and I think, God, he's still doing it. Like, and now he's going. Where's he going? Aston Martin.
With the Alpine one, they only offered him 1 year, and he wanted a 2-year contract. And he's like 42 years old. And Aston, when Vettel went, they're just like, we'll give you 2 years. Like, they panicked and just gave him a 2-year contract.
And you got to think, he's going to be with Lance Stroll. So his main competitor is going to be Lance Stroll now, and Lance Stroll really needs to up his game, because if Fernando Alonso's just outperforming him week in, week out, like, everyone's going to be like, look, you need to go. Like, we know your dad owns the team, but do you know what I mean? And but then, obviously, if he's criticising Lance Stroll in any way, his dad owns the team that he drives for, so he's got to be really careful because Fernando Alonso is the type that will just say, "Oh, Lance Stroll's this, Lance Stroll's that." And I remember, I think Vettel said something about Lance Stroll, didn't he? And then the dad got really angry and called him into the office and said, "Don't criticise him in public." And
I don't think Vettel was a big fan of the Strolls. I think that's partly the reason he retired as well, to be honest with you. Just from some of the comments that you see, I don't think he enjoyed the team dynamic.
Yeah. So moving away from like the actual sport and races, obviously we've talked about cards in today's climate and stuff like that. What do you think about sets going forward? So we've actually got Flagship coming out at the end of this month, which as of recording this video, today is the 19th, I believe, of November. We've got the new set coming out. It's actually, this is an exclusive, the street date, the date that it's meant to be released has been pushed back to December the 2nd. Within the next, I think that's 2 weeks from now, we've got Flagship coming out. We were talking a bit about it before we started recording, and you said that you think a lot of people are going to skip this year's Flagship. Expand.
I think people aren't going to be as hyped for it because there's no real change from 21 to 22. Like, I think the two main differences is your Zhao rookie card, which I don't think anyone's going to be hugely chasing, and I guess Russell's first Mercedes portrait. So I think there'll be a bit of interest in those, but I think people will probably look for singles of those. I don't know how much wax is going to be ripped. So I think, box prices might fall down because of that and the general market. And I also think F1 saw a boom because there was a real lack of product before 2020 or at 2020. And we've had, if those come out this year, Flagship and Chrome, that's 2 years worth of sets all coming out within 12 months of each other. So it's sort of like an oversupply of stock, really.
I suppose, though, at some point it must have happened because they were so delayed with 2021 stuff. Obviously, at some point, for them to get back into a cycle of like, okay, we're in the right cycle of this year's Formula One's finished and then this year's set comes out, there would have always had to have been 2 years worth come out at some point, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's probably a good time to happen because it's not a major change in the set, so it gives people a bit of breathing space to catch up. Because honestly, I'm not that excited about this year's set, to be honest. But it'd be nice if they came out mid-season, like July, August, if they could get their act together and then have a bit more hype. It's more current and more relevant, and I don't see why they can't do it because you get all the team photos done in March. You should give them enough time to print it all up and ready to go.
Yeah, that would make sense if they released next year, so 2023 set. Whilst the F1's going on.
Well, they can do it too because they did the special cards at the US and the Miami Grand Prix with the current photos of the cars. So there's obviously opportunity there, and I mean, like it's only local cards, but in Australia you can get the current.
Well, they get turbo attacks done, didn't they?
Football cards that same year that they're playing. Yeah. So hopefully Topps can catch up, and that'll help the interest in the cards, I think.
Well, Turbo Attacks comes out, and it's that year's drivers.
Well, that's it, yeah.
So all the images, and you'll notice a lot of the images are the same, duplicated across different sets. So we're going to get, obviously, this new Flagship. I'm actually quite looking forward to Flagship, and that's because when Flagship came out last time, there was huge hype, and you couldn't get them on the Topps website. And I'm one of them guys that are like, well, if Topps were selling it for $150, I'm not paying $350 for it on eBay. That's just, I don't know, my mindset. And that's done me sometimes bad, sometimes good. But like Sapphire, I thought exactly the same thing about Sapphire 2020, and then them boxes went up to $3,000, but I refused to pay $400 for one. So I sort of wish I weren't like that. But this year's one, it's like you said, I think it's going to be more readily available, and I don't think you're going to get those box breakers that are cracking open 30 cases of it in one hit and keeping hold of all the one-of-ones and all of that stuff. I don't think that's going to happen this year. But it does mean for collectors like you, me, and other people that just like, you can buy a box for like 150 quid, and in that box you're going to end up with 150, 200 cards. So realistically, to complete an entire set, you probably have to open 2/3 boxes, which then it's not going to cost you the earth. It's still like a lot of money, 450 quid. But in that, you would imagine you're going to pull a relic, You're going to pull maybe a 1 of 1, a 1 of 5, a 1 of 10, a 1 of 25. You're going to get some parallels. You're going to get obviously the checkered flag version. And then obviously complete an entire base set. So for me, I think for collectors, this is a really good time. So for collectors that enjoy, I don't know about you, but sometimes it ain't just all about the numbers. Like if I look at, Chrome's coming out, and it's going to cost me, £200 a box. Oh no, I'll just buy a set online. It is still nice opening packs, isn't it, and seeing what you get. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, look, I mean that's why I've ordered 2 boxes of Chrome Hobby, just for the fun. Like I mean, I think the only way I'm ever going to get a Hamilton autograph is by opening it. But it's the fun of opening it. A lot of enjoyment comes from that side of it.
So for a lot of people listening to this, they may not know, but Topps have actually, in America, a few of the websites have reported, and I can confirm that Chrome is due to be released at the end of December. So we have got Flagship coming out at the end of November. As of recording this video, it's mid-November. Some people may watch this like in 3 months' time, but it's mid-November now. In 2 weeks' time, we've got end of Flagship, and then we've got end of December, we've got Chrome, and then potentially we've got F1 Dynasty coming out at the end of January/February. So for the next 3 months, there's big releases coming out. And like Matt's touched on, we've already had all 3 of those this year. We've already had Flagship, Chrome, and F1 Dynasty this year. So to have another year's worth, it's going to obviously dilute the market. So yeah, I would imagine the box prices are not going to potentially hold up. But I still feel that collectors will want to buy boxes because they enjoy opening those boxes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm opening the case.
The US
I'm opening the whole
resale
case.
price on Chrome is half of what it was for 2021. So, I'm just doing my 2 boxes, and then I'll put together a base set and then buy singles. But yeah, just you need to have that fun of opening a box or 2.
Yeah, just get that itch. If you just said, the only way I'm going to get a Lewis Hamilton autograph is by opening one yourself. What do you feel the price of a Lewis autograph would go for in this new set of Chrome? Because 2020 is like you're talking 50 odd thousands and all, like out of reach figures for us. Then if you look at Chrome 2021, it was about 20 grand, I remember, to get a graded Lewis Hamilton autograph. But now that's come right down. I'm seeing them go for about $10,000, which is about £9,000. Now, if a new one comes out and say it's only achieving 4 or 5 grand, then that is you and me could probably sell some bits and move stuff around to get something like that.
Yeah, I think I was thinking somewhere between 5 and 10. It depends again how many they do. 2022 is not a memorable year for Lewis. First year where he hasn't won a race. But yeah, if it gets to that level, then it's something I would consider maybe selling, some other things to get one. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I would like to have one in the collection, ideally a 2020, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, same as me. I've for all of my card collecting, I've not got anything signed Lewis, like nothing, no hats, no. Nothing. The closest thing I've got is these turbo attacks with the digital autograph. Do you know what I mean? That's like the closest thing I've got to something autograph. So yeah, I would love to pull a Lewis card, but then also, by the sounds of things, and I don't want to get too in depth in this, your end, but it sounds like you're a lot more comfortable in life than I am. I don't think I could have a £5,000 to £10,000 card just sitting in a binder or in a PSA slab sitting behind me. I just the stage of life that I'm at and things that are going on around me in my life, I just don't know if I could sit on that. That's such a huge responsibility. If you wanted to take your whole family to Florida, say, and that would probably set me back about £5,000-6,000. So would I choose to take them there or just keep hold of this Lewis card? And I just don't know. I'd find it very difficult. Unless
that's a very...
I pulled it from a pack and I could just forget about it, and be like, okay, I'll put that away somewhere and just forget that it exists. But I'd find that very difficult.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, it's not something I would have the cash for. It's something more that I would have other cards I could probably trade or swap for. Like I've got 2 Russell rookie autographs, for instance, and I bought them really, really cheap back in 2020. Well, start of 2021 when 2020 came out. So it's something like I'm saving one for a rainy day if an opportunity like this arises. But I don't know. I guess, different stages of life and everything else. But yeah, it is like it's a lot of money just to have sitting there in a collectible.
I think I've touched on this before, and a lot of people will watch this, and I know that they will make comments like, "Oh, you're not a real collector," because you'd think of selling it straight away. And maybe there's a truth in that. I do think I am a collector, but I just also it was like when I opened up the F1 Dynasties. It was so much pressure to open them because I was like, this has to be a good hit, otherwise I've just spent all of this money on this case, or I've lost this resale opportunity of this case. For me to just open up and pull a Frederick Vasseur or whatever,
Yeah. I think with collecting, though, it gets to a point where a card, the benefit and the financial opportunity to sell it means more to you and your lifestyle than what it does sitting in your collection. So you can still be a collector, and if you pull something amazing, want to sell it because the money you're going to get from it can fund that family holiday that you wouldn't otherwise have. So I think it's, you can look at it both ways.
I don't know, like I would love to have a Lewis Hamilton autograph something at some point. I feel like the only way that I'm going to be able to do it and also keep hold of it without the pressure of, my wife will say to me, "Oh, have you, like, if she wants something big, she'll say, have you got any cards that are worth some money?" That's the first thing she always asks me, and I say, "Why?" And she'll go, "Oh, because I wanted us to do this, or the cars broke down, or or something's happened."
Yeah.
And I think, well, I have got this George Russell card, or I have got this Max Verstappen that's worth and then she's like, "Oh yeah, well, do you need it?" And then I always, how do you answer that? You're like, no, I don't need it in my life, but I want to keep hold of it, sort of thing. And then she's like, "Yeah, but for what?" And we always have this to and fro, like me and her. And then I sit and think about it, and I'm like, yeah, she is right, actually. I don't need that card. And it probably will come up again in my life. Like those Max Verstappen Hungary cards. I had 3 of them. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw them.
I put one on eBay, and I was expecting it to go for about £80, or something like that, and it went for $345. And then I messaged the top bidder, and I said, "I've actually got 3 of them." And he said, "Yeah, I'll have all 3 of them." And I said, "What, at the same price?" And he said, "Well, we do it on average like £300 per card." I was like, "Yeah." I paid like £50 a card or less than that, I think. So like I was like over the moon. Like I just think, I've just made £900 from a card that I think probably will pop up again at some point. So yeah, it is hard sometimes weighing up what to keep and what to sell off. I find that a conflict in my head all the time. Whereas you, on the other hand, you always seem to have this very clear, like, no, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it. So that says to me that
it's nice to know that if you spend that money on the card, that you're not going to lose money on it if you do need to sell it. But
all right, well, thanks for taking the time anyway to speak to me today, Matt. It was a pleasure as always. I always enjoy our chat, so maybe we'll have to fit it in. It is difficult, obviously, you being Australia, me in the UK, trying to fit us both in. If people watching this like this, don't forget to obviously smash the like button up. And comment down below if you want to see more chats with me and Matt, or if anyone else wants to join in and do some podcast chats with me, then reach out to me. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on the hobby. But hopefully, Matt, we're going to collect together many years. You've sent me cards that I've needed, I've sent you cards that you needed, and we can help each other out. And I look forward to where we go, and hopefully both of us will get a Lewis Hamilton autograph at some point.
One day. Here's hoping.
That's the one. That's like my holy grail. Just a Lewis Hamilton autograph, anything.
Look, absolutely. I mean, even just as an appreciation of him being one of the best drivers, it's something that I feel like as a collector you need to have it in your collection. But it's, again, at the price level that they are, it's a dream as well, I guess.
If I pulled a Max autograph, I would sell it straight away for a Lewis, even though the Max would probably achieve more later down the line. For me, I would.
Look, there's no guarantee to get to the same level. It's still a long 5 titles is a lot to find.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. And we'll end it there. Do you want to plug any of your social medias?
No, I'm all right, mate.
Are
I
you
don't
sure?
really. Yeah, I'm fine. It's all
I thought
good.
you had quite a big following on Instagram and that, didn't you?
Oh, the ausf1Collector. Yeah, but I don't really post much. I'm not a massive social media person, mate. So it's all good. I was just happy to chat because you wanted to, and yeah, it was good.
Okay, mate. Really do appreciate it. I'll see you very soon.
You're welcome. No worries. Take care, mate.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.